What is up, y'all? It's your boy Anaki coming at you with a Saturday stream straight from the horse's mouth to the Bojack Horseman season 2 discussion. Just like last time, we are covering one season in specifically on this stream. We got Archbishop East here,
Undefeated at the East. How y'all doing today?
and we got my boy Johnny. Johnny.
Hi. I don't know. I was thinking of
All right, season 2 Bojack.
We're gonna figure this out.
Hey man, it's live. It's too late. It's immortal. It's immortalized. That's how it is. This is your Bojackian legacy.
Bo for Bojack.
Oh man, let me real quick post this in the Discord at least. But you started this off with a rather bold claim, Danny. You said that this season contains the absolute best episode in the entire series.
Yeah, man, the chicken one.
The chicken.
No. That's a joke. That's a joke. But it does contain the.
So, do you want to lead with that, or?
Well, that episode is actually kind of towards the end, so.
Okay. So, for me, I think season 2 kind of works like season 1, and where I think a lot of the best payoff comes towards the end of the season. But I do like the position that season 2 starts a lot of the characters in, where, especially because this is, a Western adult cartoon sitcom where a lot of the shows are more like Family Guy, Simpsons, where sure the seasons things can change, or like sometimes the character may be introduced or thrown away. But thank you. Since BoJack is like a genuine like story that's trying to be told, whereas those are more over comedic sketches being thrown together with cartoon characters. Everybody starts off in this position that they were completely not in the first season, aside from Todd, I believe.
Got to deal with that brand new couch. Tough character arc that was.
Well, it's just, you think about Diane, and at the start of season 1, she's just Mr. Peanut Butter's wife to a certain degree, like as far as the public eye is concerned. And even throughout most of season 1, that's just kind of who she is, even though she is writing a book for BoJack. That's like a lot of what her public sphere identity would seem like. And then you get the stuff with Hank Hippopoulos and all these other things popping up over throughout the story that allow her to shift. And not only that, but like especially starting with the release of the book and her touring with BoJack as the author and getting into those conflicts, it's like she finally is in a position to fight for her ideals, and she immediately feels like, well, if I even sort of have this platform, then it's time for me to go to war for everything and anything that I potentially thought about or kind of believed.
Yeah. Well, Diane is actually my favorite character this season. With like her as a contained like 12 episode group of episodes. She's my favorite. She's the character I enjoyed most throughout it. This season, specifically the episode Hank After Dark, which is episode 7, really says a lot about her character. I only noticed that on the second watch, that she was fine before she went to Cordovia, and she realized that she didn't have the strength she needed to live out her ideals, and that kind of broke her in some place, and that stays for the rest of the series pretty much until season 6. But
Like,
Oh, let me chime in right here so they
hey,
can know I'm still here. It's funny enough because I was luckily that the stream worked out in favor because I ain't gonna lie, I literally just watched like 4 episodes this morning. When I think Johnny reminded me, so I've watched just 4 episodes. So funny how she did with. So funny how this season and touching that it exposed a lot of truth for a lot of the main this season really exposes the truth behind Bojack and Diane a lot, leaving them very naked because Bojack actually finally fucking admits a lot of his character flaws openly and honestly because you see him becoming a better person. But it also exposes Diane's flaws too. Like she just as selfish as Bojack in some regard because she would not let that fucking what's his name the fucking Hank the well guy.
hippopotamus.
Yeah, hippopotamus. She would not let those accusations go, and it was like Mr. Peanut Butter and other people like, yo, I kind of need you not to do this because this has nothing to concern with you, and I kind of need he's tied to my network. I need my job. Can you not? And then she's going on and on about it because she just has to make a change, make a difference, this, that, and the other. And even Bojack's trying to be a good friend, surprisingly enough. Try not to make it about him, and actually, for once, actually, because his girlfriend actually did help me become a better person. And then he's trying to make like, all right, listen, don't do this. I'm warning you now. And then Mr. Peanut Butter's like, yeah, everybody's like, yo, look, don't do this. Got nothing to do with you. Just back off. But she has to be the self-righteous and make it all about not even her, not make it all about her when it's not about her. He just exposes her truly. So then she goes and tries to do the right thing and be a good person. But then she just comes back early on and just ends up living as a fraud and depression.
Yeah, and she's using. Oh, you were about to continue that?
Then she didn't the guilt weighs on her too heavy, and then she doesn't even come clean for the fact that she's been with Bojack House for like a month or 2 months. She just tells Mr. Pimba, we can't talk, it's too hard.
I think in a way she was using. She was dragging Bojack down with her to make herself feel better. Was that obvious or?
so that's kind of why when a lot of people say, like when I've seen the theory that like Jack or Bojack and Diane are like best friend soulmates, I've seen it referred to as. I kind of agree, but in like the worst way, where they build on each other, sure, but the way in which they build on each other is inherently negative most of the time. And Bojack and Diane can see each other in a way that is very transparent, but because they can do that, they can also empathize and sympathize with each other very well and very easily, which in turn leads to Bojack inadvertently, like coddling Diane into a depression nesting phase that lasted like 8 months while she, as far as her husband knew, was off helping people around the world. And especially when you look at the way that plot line wraps up, or especially when they see each other again, which you're never 100% given a clear answer on whether or not it's a joke that he doesn't recognize her at the restaurant or not. But sorry, I'm sneezing. But like it's very clear that he is more forgiving and nice or whatever and sympathetic towards her than she's really open with him. And so she gets to lie for a really long time and then kind of just settle into like good times with him. And that's what kind of makes like this season, I think, really weird, especially like for Diane, is that she's kind of just like toxic most of the season, but not in the same way that, Bojack usually is, where she's not necessarily destroying lives. She just happens to slowly poison.
Well, yeah, because she doesn't have the power to. I think. I do think that. Well, I don't know if she would have been as destructive as Bojack, but she might. Her initial instinct is to do good, and that hurts mostly herself usually. Like she would be her actions are better for complete strangers than they are for the people around her usually. So whereas Bojack, he'd kind of like he does hurt the people around him a lot, but like towards complete strangers or people less acquainted with them, like Sharona, which we will talk about in later streams, or you know, uh,
The Nixon
well, other
dude.
people that I can't really think about right now. The, that's something he would do, and Diane, I feel, wouldn't. That's kind of a difference between them.
Well, yeah, because like Bojack will actually cuss somebody out at the restaurant. Like that even opens with like the beginning of the season is people women going on dates with Bojack and actually asking him to go ahead and make a big deal out of small stuff. And that's something that you normally wouldn't think Diane would do. But I do think it's an interesting question of when you think about the fact that she had no problems like going on national TV and having these fights with like Hanky Panky and all these other situations, you got to ask yourself if given enough time, she really might have turned out like Bojack in the sense that if she had stayed in the spotlight, stayed famous, stayed like doing stuff like Girl Cruise and all that other like being in LA, I think she might have genuinely turned into a person who does all the same things that Bojack does. And
Maybe that's a theoretical. That's very interesting to
because
talk about. But
especially when you think about the fact that like where her final career paths go, where it's Bojack's career was angled towards like both adults, but like she chooses to go towards children and like finally find something that like is more need like in line with who she is. So from that perspective, I think Diane is supposed to be like if she's not with Bojack, she can be a good version of him. But if they're together, like it's like they're always going to be bad. And Bojack being with Wanda was consistently moving towards healthier spots or behavioral patterns as the story progressed.
yeah, I feel like that episode where they're constantly normalizing each other's behavior, constantly allowing themselves to spiral down into whatever that was, really kind of shows why Bojack's pursuits of Diane in season one. Well, true, he did see flaws in her and Mr. Peanut Butter's relationship that were only explored later. He also overlooked a lot of how the relationships between them would go, and there's a big element that Bojack was acting on in that episode where he tried to separate them, was trying to have something that he didn't have that Mr. Peanut Butter did have, and not really thinking about how a relationship with Diane would be great for them.
The other thing is that I feel like Bojack, the other big issue that Bojack has with like his pursuit of Diane versus his relationship with Wanda is that, and like it actually ends up coming up in his relationship with Wanda when the Soviet spy is discovered, where Bojack
Slap my salami, the guy's a cum.
Instead of Bojack just focusing on like whatever makes his partner happy or ways to be happy with his partner, he focuses on things that can ruin the happiness or make him unhappy, and in the process slowly feeds into them and into destroying that said happiness.
Yeah, he's talking about that in season 6 with Dr. Champ, if you guys remember, because you
Yeah.
didn't rewatch season 6 recently like I did, but he kind of breaks down his entire behavioral pattern throughout the whole series. And he's like, I believe I should be punished, but because of the power I hold over others and the place I have in society, I never do. I never am. So I act out even more. And that's that, I feel like. He doesn't think he deserves this relationship with Wanda. So he tries to sabotage it. And eventually he does.
Yeah. And even his speech about getting close to him and no longer being able to like him is more of a self-fulfilling, self-destructive prophecy type deal where he ultimately decides like, well, you're not gonna like me. So then he just ends up exploding and then that ruins the relationship. And then you also got to factor in though that during this time period, I think he really wanted to be there for Diane in a lot of ways and felt like he
What he
couldn't. And
wanted
I
to
think
be?
so. What
He wanted to be what?
I said, I think he was trying to be like in his own way. He really did want to be there for Diane, and that even is a point of tension between Wanda and him too, where Wanda is constantly like, she's overstaying her welcome, and Bojack's kind of like, yeah, yeah, and like Diane effectively, or like Bojack effectively does choose Diane over Wanda throughout that season, which is a very small thing that like I think we don't think about much because it's no longer a pursuit that's inherently just romantic for Bojack, but he does effectively choose to prioritize what he considers to make Diane happy, even though almost as soon as Wanda's gone out of his life, Diane ends up leaving like an episode later too, I think. So it's like he kind of chose Diane and put her over uh what he actually wanted or was after, like holding on to just to lose both anyway, which is kind of a play on the whole bird in the hand is worth two in the bush because now he has none and both
Yeah.
lose the coop.
In this case,
and then what's her name? Wanda found out that Diane and fucking Bojack kissed when they were doing
Oh yeah,
the celebrity. What did they know? How much did they know? What did they written on it, etc.
what? What did you say?
Wanda found out that Bojack had kissed Diane during the celebrity
Oh,
show.
Yeah.
And they
yeah,
found
was
out
that
through there, it was like, wait, they kissed? And it's kind of just brushed over, but within the continuity of Bojack, things are kind of brushed over, but it's not episodic because some things always actually come back to play later on. And
Yeah, like the way Bojack and Sarah Lynn had sex. We kind of discarded that, and then 5 seasons later, it came back to bite him in the ass.
yeah, basically. So it's like some things may seem like throwaway at first, but no, actually, this one in continuity that past events actually did happen before.
right? And that's kind of one of the things that the Hollywood sign, like we talked about in season one, where he takes the D, but that stays the whole season. That was kind of like this small, like litmus test almost to see like, hey, is our audience gonna catch on that we're gonna keep actually having something serial here that's gonna continuously be like, irrelevant, not just as a gag, but it's an actual plot point within the series. Especially when you think about the fact that the prank turning it to the name of Hollywood could have just stayed a joke and just a joke, but instead it also becomes the part of the movie that they end up working on, which means that
Yeah.
Bojack is forced to live in it for a while and really sit there and think about all that. Which I think that's this season too, where they're doing the movie and uh, he's with Diane and they have the whole fake Diane and she decides she's in love with Bojack thing. but that might be
No,
season 2.
that's the last season.
Is it?
Yeah,
Man.
episode 10.
Okay. I just. Whew.
You know, there's an interesting point in that celebrity show when that. It's funny because I think the mouse girl, she was your typical I have to work extra hard just to get ahead type beat character or person. There's people like that in real life. They get all uppity and they believe they're superior because they had to work 10 times harder, or they went to this prestigious school, did this prestigious thing, and the thing that gives them status and prevalence over everybody else, importance and superiority. While niggas like Todd somehow fell upwards or seemingly skate by life with very little consequences that seemingly, and then they just happen to get lucky. No Mr. Peanut Butter, no Bojack, and then get the fucking job that took the old girl fucking climbing up the ranks and the ladders to get to. So that kind of created jealousy and envy. But it's so funny that like after she got the pin for her hard work, then Todd just like feels bad, supposedly air quote on air quote, and then like she has a change of heart. It's like, yo, but it's not that important. Then this dickhead Todd just goes ahead and just flips everything. It's like, you gave us the pin like an idiot. I went and I was like, what type of shit? I was like, all right, Todd.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that it's like, even though that's mostly like supposed to just be like a funny interaction, it is kind of a commentary on how people that fail upwards, like, while yeah, it's true that like having a chip on your shoulder for having a grind is kind of bad, it does highlight why people, like, that one moment highlights why people don't, like, why people end up with that chip on their shoulder, because instead of Todd actually just letting it be a moment of her being sympathetic, it makes it a point to make it seem like him getting the pin from her because she felt bad for him is the same as her getting the pin through her actual hard work, as a way to undercut like all the effort she put in to actually being considered worthy of it. And so it makes it like, yeah, no, you're right to feel like I sometimes like the whole point of that joke kind of like justifies feeling like, Todd, you get things you don't deserve in a way, in just clever ways through emotional means, essentially. So it's effectively through nepotism, and you'll continue to succeed and move up in the world because of that. And when you think about other jobs he gets later in this series, that's just kind of true. Like, that will always be the path to success. It's just somebody liking Todd.
I actually feel like that was a pretty uncharacteristically rude moment from Todd, because like you can say everything about his white privilege, but Todd is a kind person, and I don't think he would do that usually.
Well, that's the thing about that, though, is that
like he wouldn't rub it in her face.
I've been friends with those kinds of guys, and they do start off like they are kind, but they oftentimes don't have a good amount of self-awareness. And that particular like type of joke, they definitely, like, it's something that they would do, not realizing just how like the layered nuance to the disrespect, because they don't have that self-awareness. So it's because we can like look at them through that, like through a lens, and like look down and be like, well, Todd is getting by because of X, Y, and Z, but she did all these things, and we know that this requires X amount of effort, this amount of effort, and we know for a fact. But we observed Todd spend half the seasons on Bojack's couch, not even really putting in any active effort throughout most of the time he's, in the story, to like better his life in a more like rational, grounded sense. So it's like we know that like what he's doing, but like that's kind of the thing with people who fail upwards, or people who always have these connections. They genuinely and almost never see it as, I did this in an easier way, and therefore it's different. It's always seen as the same. So they're like, boom, I got the pin, and all it took was like you feeling bad for me. And so like for Todd, it's like, haha, you undercut your own stuff. But like, but it's like, yeah, and like Alba said in the chat, like it's like he actually saw her as a rival. So like for him, it's like competitive, like bars almost. And because he was like trying to win through empathy, he wasn't being empathetic anymore. It's just a form of losing yourself.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe we should find a kind of a structure for these, because we're kind of like, or maybe that works for you, but I feel like we're kind of
We also
going
had
all over the place a
the
bit.
miscommunication at the start, so
Yeah,
we just
so-
kind of had to roll with that. But yeah,
Okay.
which, and okay, because like let's just stick on the subject of Todd real quick, because I also want to kind of point out that Todd's plot with Bojack this season is kind of designed to mirror what Bojack went through with Diane in the first season, where you notice how it's like rocky. It's like at the start, or like they're kind of like coming back together in the beginning, where except like with Diane and Bojack, obviously they had just met, but in season two, like Diane, like Todd and Bojack are slightly at odds because of the rock opera, because of all that stuff. And so they're coming back together throughout the series, but then like just like how as Bojack was bonding with Diane in season one and they go through the stuff with the family, like as Bojack is bonding with Todd and Todd finds another family in the improv theater, like it's the time to show up. But instead of him kissing Todd and alienating him that way, he misses Todd's performance because he's off in Mexico.
Yeah.
And
Not
so,
like he would have come if he was
right. He probably wouldn't have shown up even anyway. But like it's like especially now, Todd, like in different ways, Bojack pursuing romance destroys and hurts his friendships. In of itself, it seems to be like a lesson. Like when you're at that state, he's not able to have a healthy romantic dynamic. And even with those, within those dynamics, when he does have them, he usually, self-sabotages them, like we mentioned. But I just wanted to kind of talk about how even though Todd, like because Todd is a dude that fails upwards and usually doesn't have to be aware of himself, like even when he like falls into a cult, he doesn't have to be too emotionally invested in things that are happening all the time. And he kind of like gets to drift by, and that's part of why, like, even though he gets pulled in, it's easy for him to get pulled out too.
Well, yeah, you actually said something that kind of, I thought you were going another way with that, but it sort of sparked something with me, that Todd and Bojack, with their self-awareness, are kind of opposites, because Bojack is hyper self-aware, while Todd is completely unaware of himself. And there's definitely some jealousy from Bojack to Todd in that department, I think.
It's
What are
probably.
your thoughts
I
about
mean,
that?
I would see that as the reason why Bojack is always extra hard on Todd, so that he can like watch. You don't feel bad about anything you do or yourself at all, but I feel constantly like shit, and like I feel constantly like shit, and but you live stress free, carefree. Meanwhile, I'm always thinking about all the garbage shit I've always did my entire life. So, fuck you.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna let you get that happiness.
There's also that layer of, because you're not aware, when you do these negative things, you don't ever fix them or change that pattern. Because to a certain degree, like Todd, get your shit is like partially Bojack just being a dick, but it is also partially reflective of Todd always having shit everywhere because he doesn't like pay attention to the space he takes up or anything like that. So in turn, he doesn't pay attention to his impact.
Yeah. Well,
or the fact that like when you think about it, it's like Todd didn't look at it as I have this opportunity to improve myself because I live on this rich dude's couch. he was just like, because I live on this rich dude's couch, everything's taken care of already. So like, all right, I guess I'm just here. I'll worry about anything else later. Which is why like eventually Todd does, like start getting jobs and stuff, which is cool. But
Yeah.
it's like that particular aspect is like what we watch Todd grow out of. So we don't think about the fact that still though he was in that phase for like 5 years with Bojack. And we don't know when Bojack started clipping his wings versus uh when Bojack, like how, like when he was just there so long that Bojack just got used to him being there that it became a like weird codependency thing. Todd is a dude.
So I guess Johnny does have a point. So I guess we'll probably have to, after this, we'll probably start structuring it better as for the last was it 6 seasons of BoJack. So we'll start structuring it better for 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I think the best way to structure will probably be classes or categories. We talk about our highlight points or our favorite points.
Well, that's why earlier I was just like, well, what do you think is like the best episode? Which we still haven't gotten that answer, by the way.
Yeah, wait.
All right, Johnny went on mute. Best episode.
Well, it was because he said specifically the best episode of the series is in this season.
Oh yeah.
So I was curious about that. Besides, like the
Okay, but before we get to that, because that actually kind of maybe we can segue from what I want to talk about now to that episode. Or maybe you guys want to talk about your favorite episodes before we do that. But right now, I got to kind of like something that I really noticed while rewatching. I think it's interesting, and I know I'll forget it if I don't talk about it now. So
let's hear it.
let me pull up my notes. Okay. Yeah. So two things I noticed in the first episode of this season. One is that we talked about kind of like how season 1 is about Bojack realizing there's something wrong with his behavior. Right? Because he's got Diane to judge him, and he loses his relationship with Herb, and he loses in his relationship with Princess Carolyn fundamentally changes. So he realizes something is wrong with him, with how he acts, and he tries to change that all by himself in the first episode of this season.
Yeah, you do have a point there, definitely. I remember he was trying to work out, be better, just do better.
Yeah. And I feel like
positive Bojack.
Yeah, and that kind of mirrors his handling of himself in season 5. I feel like we'll talk about that obviously in the appropriate stream, but you know, he sees that he has in both the finales of season 1 and the finale of season 4, Bojack sees that he has sort of something to give. Right, Hollyhock wants him as a brother. That guy in the finale of season 1 says he's his hero. Like he sees he's relatable to the public. So he sort of like sees this way out of his self-destructive and I don't know other destructive behavior, and he tries to take that on completely by himself. And in both times, he completely fails at that. Right, because like in season 5 he has that like no one bottle per week policy, and that sort of like disintegrates throughout the season, and eventually he becomes a total mess. Even though Diane suggests therapy, he's still going about it completely in self-denial. Same thing with this episode.
Yeah, like, And that's like kind of so Alves mentioned the pre-finale with Penny, and I think that that episode also like within a vacuum highlights the issues that like Bojack's faces with his like trying to be good mentality. Because in a lot of ways, the one problem that Bojack has is that he like I don't want to say he has the misguided expectation, but that's kind of really the only thing I can think to call it. That getting better and doing better means life will be better and you'll be happier and you'll get things that can make you be happy because you've improved. And that's not always the case. And especially that, like those interactions when he's in New Mexico, where it's like you've been holding on to this weird what if scenario for 30 years about um like and you think about how he's talking about his way of dying would be going out for a swim in Maine when he knows he can't, but he won't be strong enough to swim back. And then he goes under the bubbles. You get all these dark, but like that idea of dying in Maine is specifically because he thought of living in Maine with a woman who lived in New Mexico after staying in Maine for a single month. There's all these disconnects. And then like you get like he's like, oh yeah, I want to be he's like, yeah, I'm here to buy a boat. And he like goes to pretend and like tries to be good and like live in this, ends up staying there for like 2 months and plays house with these people because he secretly wants to be with, this woman that he knew he didn't know. So it's like he's like, oh well, we spent like 2 months together. Now we actually know each other and we have this fun dynamic because nothing bad's happening. But he's like ignoring that this whole dynamic is built upon them being friends, not potential lovers. And so it's like he's missing all these context clues. He's kind of going through, he's trying to be good, but he's assuming that these efforts are going to culminate in him like living this dream that he's had for 30 years. And once it starts falling apart, he tries to maintain it with Penny. One of the things that I didn't notice, like on my first watch, and the second watch, I was too busy being uncomfortable. But the third time I watched it, I really zeroed in on this, was that Penny multiple times like tries to give him like a whole lecture on why he should dick her down. And I don't know why I didn't remember that like was a thing, but like it does show you that like Bojack was like, no, I'm not gonna do that bad thing. He's like, I'm not gonna do this bad thing. I'm not gonna do this bad thing. But then he makes a move on the mother, and that doesn't work out. And then he's like, no, I'm not gonna do this bad thing. And then she's like, no, we're doing the bad thing. And then he almost does it, but doesn't get to do it.
I'm actually kind of bummed you chose so early on to talk about episode 11 because that is what I was referring to earlier as the best episode of the series in my opinion because it's just a microcosm of Bojack's entire behavior throughout everything. It's so well paced. It's heartbreaking. It makes you feel things. When that opening title, when they hit that opening title during that montage when he goes back to LA, best few moments of the entire series to me. And so I want to kind of like wanted to kind of hope we could kind of like lead up to that, but if we're opening this.
Yeah, it was because Alves mentioned it in the chat. So I was like, man, like, yeah, let's talk about that.
It's crazy because I can only talk about the first 5 minutes of the episode, first 10 minutes of the episode. No, first 5. Because I ain't
Kyle and the kids.
Because I didn't finish the episode. Literally, we're having it right now. Looking at fucking Bojack teaches Penny how to drive.
Man. Oh, that's the other, and that's okay. That was part of what I meant by like Bojack started pretending like got to play family because he
got to play his role on horsing around again.
Like he's sitting there teaching her how to drive and all this other stuff, and that in a weird way, like how you mentioned, it's a microcosm of all his behavior, and you compared it to Horsing Around. It's also then like you can compare Penny to Sarah Lynn,
Oh, definitely.
and it's like, but and then that makes certain scenes, especially later on, when he's apologizing and ends up where he shouldn't be. That makes it like when he came back into Sarah Lynn's life.
Yeah. Actually, I want I wanted to kind of, I don't know if disagree with you is the right word, but sort of like the phrasing was, I don't know if we were on the same page with that. And we don't have to be, but I just want to kind of
Mhm.
touch on that. You said Bojack thought in episode 11 that if he became better, that would necessarily mean his life gets better. And I kind of, Bojack is always in this cycle of, okay, he's depressed. That makes him less motivated to become a better person, which makes him do horrible things, which makes his self hatred stronger, which makes him depressed. And that cycle sort of continues. And so I think the moment Bojack in season 6, we actually got an example of Bojack improving, him doing positive things, bringing positive change to his friends' lives, and he becomes happier. He becomes more accepting of himself. That's symbolized when he goes to the horse town and he can tolerate horses again, you know?
Mhm.
So I think when Bojack does actually fundamentally change and become better as a person and does good things, his life does become happier. It's just that in this episode, he didn't fundamentally change. He was always holding out for that. In the end of all this, I'm going to get with Charlotte. He was always doing it for himself. He was never really
So I think that, but I think what it comes down to is that like
altruistic.
I don't think we necessarily complete. Yeah, like disagree isn't the right word for that because it is kind of like a phrasing thing. Because ultimately, yeah, like Bojack hadn't actually made and finished making those changes yet, but he was expecting like that payoff, and like it does kind of work that way. But he was expecting like a tangible, like I get a partner type payoff. I get to be with Charlotte at the end of this because I, like that's like his hero's tale is that he
Yeah,
made it
getting the
through all
girl.
that, like he made it through all that darkness, and then he's with Charlotte, and da 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 da. Whereas in the end of season, like in season 6, like you mentioned, when he's like really out here doing these things, it's like it's not like a selfish type of love. It is like that I have like my sister, because when you think about what his role is and all the stuff that he's been doing, it's like that familial bond, that progress I've made, it's had a positive impact on the people I cared about without it being about sex or any of those other types of attachments, which is even more important because to a certain degree, Bojack had like almost no connection or real feelings for the concept of family due to how bad butterscotch and the creamer, like not creamer, but the whole his whole family's legacy was, where he ends up alone because being close to a bunch of people just isn't an option for him. But as he finally starts fixing things with his found family or just losing people that he really cared about, i.e., Todd, he starts to finally like realize what he actually wants, cares about, and tries to maintain.
Yeah, and that doesn't last very long, but
Yeah.
uh, that's kind of a thing with Bojack. You never really know the future of the series. It doesn't leave us on a status quo. It just leaves us on a promise that Bojack can change, and maybe he will.
Well,
And I
and
think
that's
that's what's truly special about it.
and that's kind of what I was really getting at too with the he thought it would be better is that like Bojack's like breakdown in the last 2 or 3 episodes of the entire series, like what like that like massive moment of weakness and the danger behind it, it all kind of stems from the fact that genuinely it was like I'd been trying to improve my life. I've been becoming a healthier person. I've been doing all this stuff. and it's all still exploding. And so while I do think Bojack ends up like in the last episode, like in a healthier direction that he can be going in, I do think it's a very somber like version of like you're being a good person doesn't mean you get a super good life. And I don't think that that's a bad message to teach because it's just kind of true. Like, and so I think of what happened with Penny is like in that episode, it's like a small microcosm of how like Bojack will try to do the right thing and then sometime and like gets discouraged because he feels like the reward mechanism or whatever the payoff is in life isn't good enough. And then he just like lashes out or tries in some way to take that or some version of that, which is why if you can't have real Charlotte and Charlotte's daughter is still throwing it at you, then you might as well take Penny because you know it's like a version of Charlotte, but it's not
Yeah.
her.
Ironically enough, um, Bojack's defense mechanism against himself is most often the carrot and stick uh, method, which is ironic because he's a horse,
Yeah.
but also because, well, he expects to get the carrot, and when he doesn't, he expects others to give him the stick. And when he doesn't get either, he's sort of like, well, I'm not gonna become a better person because I don't get the carrot and I don't get the stick. And he sort of just settles into that self-hatred.
Yeah, because like especially when you think about because some in season one especially some of the other jokes are also him kind of like expecting to get carrots where there's no reason to receive them. Uh, like the stuff with the airport scene with Diane, where he's like, "How'd you get through so fast?" And she's like, "I just followed the rules." And then, you know, he's got a lighter that looks like a pistol.
That scene, I actually, after, yeah, he's just died. So
Okay, I was trying to figure out what happened there because I was like, something, my audio like flipped out.
maybe he's doing the thumbnail again. Which is, man, come on, do him later. We want to have you on.
And watching.
Oh shit!
No, I think he was rewatching the Penny episode.
Yeah.
Oh, right, he didn't finish. Okay.
I was literally watching around. I still didn't finish it, but it was something interesting. I was talking about how he tried to do the family shit. He was just on the phone with Princess Carolyn. And he was like, "Yo," he's just on the phone with Princess Carolyn, and he's like, "It's like how many times I gotta put these fires for you?" He's like, "You know, I don't think I'm actually coming back." But that's right after he was given the opportunity to go ahead and do a bunch of shit. Like, yeah, you can stay as long as you like. There's no trouble. Everybody likes you here. And then the motherfuckers like, they like me here? And everybody's on this boat playing around and shit like that, and just having a blast and a good time. So this nigga's like, "Oh, okay." "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, you know what? This really is my escape from LA. I don't have to be put on the pressures again." And you know how BoJack is from running away from shit like that. So it's like, it's just interesting to see he is playing that family dynamic, and then they're like, he's actually like getting a job and shit, and just being that, because there's a good side to BoJack. There's the good in BoJack, and then is also a dickhead and an asshole. But that's mainly when he's not sober.
Yeah.
Okay,
One thing.
so that's something else that just made me think about is how like he really did just name his boat like the Escape from LA. Like he saw everything about that situation as a chance, and like even that boat just became a new symbol of like the family that like they built together. So it was like, we got this weird boat in the driveway, we live together, it's a great time, woo.
And during
And
the montage,
oh yeah,
just
yeah,
a
go.
tangent. During the montage, when he returns, he's just watched that, I think. But it's actually like it's not what you think, right? Like you see him with his sunglasses, wind in his hair, lying on the boat, and then it like zooms out and you see it's just being pulled by
A tow truck.
I don't know how that's called.
It's a tow truck.
Yeah, and by a tow truck. And then he's stuck in traffic on the highway. So it's if we really take that boat as a symbol of that life that he thought he should have had, that again breaks that expectation.
And then you also think about how this entire time he was thinking about going, like, he's got I'll go to New York for this play. And then it's like, I can do the Secretariat project, but then like you get some of these flashbacks of Secretariat, and he's like, oh, what made you decide this? And he's like, I just started running, and running felt good, so I kept running. And then Bojack takes that lesson in his heart as a child, and is like, I will run if it comes down to it then. And so he runs to LA, which he had been playing Secretariat so he runs from the project that he had always wanted to a life that he thinks he wants, only to have to run back. And he's always just stuck running and fleeing from the problems. Like he literally had to flee New Mexico because of what happened with Penny. So it's kind of like the whole season was building up towards him screwing up with Penny, trying to escape LA and still being stuck there. But the upside is that the boat that he thought was going to be his escape from LA ends up being the thing that allows him to leave LA and bring Todd home. So it's kind of like the thing that was supposed to be the symbol of his newfound freedom and living with a new family ends up being the thing that allows him to maintain his current one if he's willing to put the work in, which, because of where Bojack was in season 3 and a lot of the stuff that happened, but the potential was there. In season 2, like the setup was there. We gave Bojack the option. But I also want to say that I felt like that interaction with Penny was also one of the things that we could have been like expecting when you think about the commentary that I pointed out with Sextina Aquafina, where Sextina is a teenager who is sexualized. She's out here doing all these things. And it's like, yep, that's right. I'm going to be like her. And that's why the rant that Penny goes on is about New Mexico's age of consent and how she's old enough to do what she wants to do, and she knows the decision. And when you got celebrities like Sextina, it makes that conversational or like that thought process of 17-year-old hitting on like 50-year-old dude seem like it's more justified than it actually is.
Yeah.
So I think throughout the show, it's kind of emphasizing how, and especially with Bojack being an old man from Hollywood, it's even less, quote, weird, right? Because, the Hollywood men always are able to, date the younger girls, whatever. And it's like that. Is that actually what should be going on? And even when you think to what happened early on, there's a scene with the brother where it's like, oh, he's got a boner at the table, and they're like, oh, you're at the table with an old man and your parents. So they make it a point to frame the context of anybody in that room being attracted to anyone is kind of weird, outside of like the parents being attracted to each other. And that's another thing they set up in the early episode, and then just to flip it in and have that weird interaction once they go to the prom.
I love how well, that's really later on, but in like that episode in season 6 where Pete Repeat comes back, right? Which first we'll talk about that. But another favorite of mine. But he sort of like frames it. A lot of these moments like seem normal to us when they happen. Like, Bojack having sex with Sarah Lynn, we're like, but we're also like normalizing it because it's, they're both adults, and then in season 2 episode 11 it's like, oh, it's a comical situation. So yeah, we don't see it as weird that Bojack is living with this family, like just as a plus one. And then in season 6, when Hollyhock and Pete talk about that, it's like totally weird, right? Yeah. So it kind of the show loves to do that where it seems comical and all right in the moment, but then they sort of take a step back and have other people look at it, and it's what the fuck was going on there.
Exactly, because when you look at the
Did I just demonetize this video for you?
No, you're good.
exactly because
Okay.
when you look back at, oh, okay, just a cool adult, BoJack being a cool older guy, let's get some alcohol for you kids so you can drink properly and responsibly. But then you look at it from another point of view outside of there, you just like, you're a fucking adult. Don't give the kids extra alcohol. What's wrong with you? Well, on prom night, and then do all the shit you do afterwards is like, that's not a good thing to do.
And that's the other thing is that Bojack was like, we'll get drunk and then blow off the prom. And it's like, no, that's not how like any of this works. You as the adult make a bunch of responsible, healthy decisions, not take the kids into committing a bunch of crimes. So the fact that hey, this time I caught myself on time, was able to mute.
Yeah, that looked comical, just quieted down.
Oh. But yeah, so it's like from Pete's perspective, and what's interesting is that we don't see the other girl again, which I think that's kind of intentional too, is that like she like her life went in a direction that didn't necessarily intersect with Bojack again.
Can't wait for
But
that spin-off.
it didn't matter because the consequences of those actions still had weight. And bringing Pete Repeat back into it made it make more sense because of like based on like who Penny are and who Hollyhock is versus who Pete Repeat is. Like it does make more sense for Hollyhock and Pete to kind of randomly run into each other, and for it to be like more coincidental. Whereas if uh, Hollyhock had run into Penny, Penny might have already been inherently like uncomfortable discussing it with Hollyhock.
Yeah.
Because she was a horse. And if she would have looked, and people did comment that she kind of looked like Bojack, so that would have not made her the most comfortable too. But by it being like an innocuous encounter with Pete Repeat, like it becomes this thing that they have a reason to just accidentally get there and then put together and be like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah. Plus, we know Penny is going to Oberlin and Hollyhock's going to Wesleyan. So that's like two different parts of the states, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like less realistic if, say, Pete might be going to Wesleyan and then, or somewhere, or a college around that area, Connecticut, I want to say.
Yeah, I think Wesleyan is Connecticut here.
Well, they say it in the episode where he travels two places. So he's like Illinois
Yeah,
when
it's
he visits
Connecticut.
Diane. Okay,
It's
and where's
Connecticut.
Oberlin? In Ohio. Yeah, it's in Ohio.
Yeah. So that's like Midwest versus um, that's Midwest versus actual.
That's actually
Eastern.
not that far away, right?
No, it's at least 2.5 hours by plane.
Oh.
Or hold on. Here,
Yeah,
let me go. Here, I'll just put it in for you real
that's
quick.
a big country you got there.
Oh yeah. You got to realize that
Like 2.5 hours by plane. I'm going from here to Rome.
Sorry, it's let's see. If you're driving, it's 8.5 hours.
Bet the audience is on the edge of their seats right now.
I mean, you could walk there 100. It's 573 miles. Let's just here. Yeah, that's 922 kilometers away. So there.
Oh yeah. It's further away than I thought. Okay.
So yeah,
So
they're
that
pretty far from each other.
completely unnecessary tangent.
Well, no, because it kind of shows that, because again, like we talked about, a lot of shows would not be so serial in that they would just like have her meet, but instead they're like, well,
Because she also plays another role in the episode already. Like we know she's not at the party, right? Because she's talking to
yeah,
Paige Barron.
but also it's just kind of like the fact that when you think about it, like, okay, if she had been going to a college, like like a college in New York or one of those ones, it's like maybe they both went to a college party that was like an hour and a half away, and like that hour and a half that each drove led to each other like being near the same place. But instead, the writers are like, we put Penny in Ohio, so Penny's in Ohio. She's not going to be 8.5 hours by car away, or a plane
Hold on.
ride that's like an hour or anything like that. That's ridiculous.
Since Johnny's gone, I guess I'll have to take back over.
Johnny's. Oh, and now that I finally found it, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes away by plane.
All right. Since Johnny's gone, y'all, I shall take over, lead then. Aniki. Right now, I'm just remembering the exact events that happened in season 2 that came back later on, which was that Bojack really did do that bullshit with that girl getting the alcohol poisoning. And once again, he's making mistakes. And then the setup for him actually being independent because he can't have the mom. I keep forgetting her name for some reason.
And he was trying to recreate. He was trying to recreate moments with Charlotte with like moments he had with Charlotte.
Yeah,
with Penny, like already earlier on with the balloons and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that tipped her off is that like the balloon landed by her, and she was like, "Hold up, didn't we just talk about this?" Like, and so she's like, "Oh no, he went to prom with my daughter, and then they went off somewhere and released balloons, and then they did okay, nah." And that's what's like scary is like, to us, like when we talked about how like the Bojack is like, I did a good thing. It's like he basically was like, I went on a date with your daughter, so I get to sleep with you, which is even weirder than the going on a date with somebody and expecting to sleep with them expectation. Because again, like especially because on one hand, being like, oh, I'm a celebrity, I'll take you to prom. Sure, if you were like a 21-year-old celebrity like that, or like even like a 20-year-old celebrity, it's like, yeah, you're a little old, but like that flex like kind of works because like your audience is probably teenagers. So that would actually be like something that, oh, like the woo, like, yeah, really it's just like a celebrity chaperone for a high school thing. Cool. Like that's how people would see that. Yeah. Bojack was like 55. So it's like, woo.
Oh, 51, but
yeah. This dude that
if you over 30 and you not related,
it's like this 51-year-old dude just, and like the joke that the dad was gonna do it does, like, it's like, yeah, a lot of dads do like think that's lame, and I think that's kind of that's utilized to undercut how weird it is that Bojack does it.
Yeah,
it's a constant thing Bojack does, to blend comedic things that would or should happen with your family, stuff like that. And it was like, or your average show sitcom it would do. And it's like, oh, okay, but it's undercut because like, all right, Bojack's gonna do it. Then it's all set up for events to play out later on, but you don't really acknowledge it full force, full throttle.
And since Bojack and Penny have been having all these like wholesome uncle moments, where like when he took her to the that boy's house, and you know when they were doing the driving, or like when they were talking about how so and so in the class was such a bitch, and then like when they was like, oh yeah, you're going to the prom, and you'll see him and you'll be like, hey, and he'll be like, hey, and then you'll just like keep walking with me, and then it was like, oh my god, and then like Charlotte's just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? It's like he got so into the role of like being close to her because it was like it was almost like he wanted to have the prom experience with Charlotte that he never had.
And again, mentally, Bojack is pretty close in age. Like that's what attracted him to Wanda the entire season. That she was mentally 20 and he was mentally 20.
Yeah.
So like in his mind, he doesn't have as much responsibility as we put on him and as we should put on him because he's like mentally he's not that much older than Penny. To him, but he should.
Like, because like that's what is her name? Kelsey is the one who made it a point to be like, well, a lot of people stop growing when they become famous, because Diane was like sitting there thinking about which maybe that's in season 3 when that conversation happens. But
no, that conversation happened in season 2.
Yeah, so like they have that conversation about people freeze at different ages. So it's like, yeah, Bojack froze as a young person, but he still needs to have the awareness to realize that he's an old ass person.
Well, actually, that's another.
Keep going. Yeah.
Like Diane's arc starts in episode 1 with that conversation because she's afraid of settling in with Mr. Peanut Butter, and that's their ultimate dissonance. He doesn't want to change, and she does. And you know, the ballroom thing with in season 4, that's kind of like the camel, fuck me. How does that go in English?
The straw that broke the camel's back.
The straw that broke the camel's back. That's kind of what that is, but the dissonance of him not changing versus her wanting to change and become better is kind of like what drives them apart in a lot of points until leading up to that.
Yeah. Also, Johnny, I don't know if you were in here, but it's 3 hours by plane.
Oh boy.
But between Oberlin and Westland, it would have been.
Wait, is Connecticut in like the top, like the northeast?
Yeah. So
like where all the tiny states are.
Wesleyan is like, it's on the northeast. It's a little past New York. It's like close to New Hampshire, Vermont area. But Oberlin is off Lake Erie by Cleveland, which is near Detroit, which is like west of Pittsburgh, even. Like, so it like they aren't that far apart as far as like in relation to other cities and other states. Like if you're talking like New York to where I live, or like even if you were like Westland to where East is, like those are still further. But
where are you in East?
East is in Georgia.
I'm in ATL.
Yeah. So
And
East, it would take, let's see.
That's right. Not just Bojack discussions. You're learning geography in this podcast.
Repeat that?
Yeah, see, it would take East for like if East was driving, it's 14 hours. Then that's not even like they don't even have the flights. They said niggas don't go from the A to Westland. I'm gonna just assume that's Google being racist again. Oh wait, no, they got faster flights, better planes, 2 hours. All right. Anyway,
You want to go right now? So, yeah, okay. I think I wanted to mention earlier before we kind of entered that escape from LA. Unless we still got stuff to cover with that episode.
Oh, somebody mentioned the dad, and I don't know if the dad ever found out either. That we are aware of. Does the dad ever actually get told what happened with Bojack?
No, he doesn't, because in later seasons, Bojack actually kind of feels him out, and while he was on the drug bender in season 5, he calls Charlotte, and the dad picks up, and he's kind of like asking him questions to feel out if Penny said anything, and she didn't. But
Yeah.
so what I wanted to say was that there's an interesting parallel that kind of. All right. There's an interesting parallel between Kelsey Jennings and Beatrice Horseman. Let me pull up my notes. I don't know if I'm just talking out of my ass here. Aniki, you good?
Oh yeah, no, I thought I heard somebody like
Yeah.
talking loud enough that it was registering through over here, so I like just muted real quick to.
Well, it was, but
Yeah.
it had nothing to do about that. So, yeah, okay. Yeah. So Kelsey, and I'm not saying she has an obligation, to be soft towards Bojack, right?
Yeah.
I love Kelsey, by the way. She's probably my favorite side character. Yeah, she is. And so, first of all, I want to say how Kelsey is, first of all, she is a lesbian, which immediately separates Bojack's relationship with her from Bojack's relationship with any straight woman that we meet, right? Because every straight woman he sees as a potential mate.
Yeah.
And Kelsey, that sort of immediately puts them, like, there's no romantic or sexual pursuit there at all. And
Yeah, you end up knowing for sure nothing is gonna go down between these two.
yeah. And so Bojack immediately sees that, sees this female figure in his life who is his director, so she has power over him, which is again exactly the opposite as to the relationships he has with other women in his life, right?
Yeah, like Kelsey is somebody. Okay, so that's actually something that I really really like.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on to that thought. So there's that, and I think immediately I wouldn't have picked up on that if it weren't in the same episode where Beatrice kind of holds him back. But there's a very, Bojack definitely views Kelsey as a motherly figure in his life. I think she reminds of his mother in a lot of ways, because she has that don't stop dancing attitude. She really represents like the Hollywood mindset while directing Secretariat. Sure, she strays away from that, and the more we see of her, we see that she kind of has that deeper artistic vision. But for now, that's what she does. Like, she says, I don't care if you're happy or not. Just do your job.
Yeah.
And that's really Beatrice's mindset that she drilled into him from a very young age. You're gonna do the lollipop dance. I don't care if you're happy or not. And he immediately kind of sees that parallel subconsciously, and that's why he really wants to please Kelsey throughout the show.
Yeah, and that's kind of, yeah, like the Nixon thing is especially him being like, wait, but like you're such an artist, and like part of his hangups about not being a good actor was like wanting to be good enough to impress Kelsey, and like making sure it's a film that, to a certain degree, he started wanting a film up to par with what Kelsey would make. There was like this acknowledgement of her as like an artist, and like you said, like to a certain degree, like her approval. Yeah, he was like chasing it like a mother figure. Wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew, for a second, I thought I accidentally like muted myself, and that's why it was quiet. But yeah, I think Kelsey, and then that's kind of why and now that you mention it, it's kind of like, well, that's a season 3 episode, so we're not going to get into it. But that made me think about the episode with the horse, the seahorse, a lot differently. Wow.
Yes.
Like,
well, yeah, that's just I don't like those podcasts that it's just like people agreeing with each other all the time in kind of like a sickly way. So I generally try to avoid constantly like being, yeah, you're so right, because you are. But
yeah, no, to me,
you feel me.
If a person's right, they're just right. You just kind of have to like deal with it. But yeah, it does like shorten the length of discussions though, where it's like, all right, well, we all agreed on that, so
yeah.
But I do think, I'm trying to think like what else big points in season 2 are there to cover.
Oh, that's actually, here's something. Well, you had I don't know if that's what you were intending to say, like what you finished up with, but while I was talking about the Kelsey Beatrice parallel, you had a tangent you wanted to go on.
Oh no, like I just, like I said, the parts that I feel like I really wanted to say. Like I do think that she is reflective of Beatrice and does do a good job of like putting that pressure on him, but I don't think that like I don't know if he sees her completely like Beatrice, but more like as a mother that he has the chance that he actually could impress. Because I don't like with Beatrice, he saw her as hopeless, whereas he saw Kelsey as someone reasonable.
Basically, a second chance.
Yeah, like that was actually an attainable, achievable thing that he saw. So, I think that in a lot of ways he saw, and then so to a certain degree, then that kind of also would make it where Kelsey always liking Beatrice or liking Todd was like how Beatrice seemed to like everybody else more than Bojack too. Just in this case, the person who ends up getting her affection is the person who frustrates Bojack a lot. So it's kind of like reflective of his parents' altered affections being the big source of Bojack's grief as an adult.
East, you got any thoughts on that?
No, not necessarily.
So I wanted to sort of ask, because that's a really weird plot point, quote unquote, of the season. But in episode 6, you remember how that ends?
Hold on. Season 6, episode 6 specifically. Let's see, because I rewatched the first half of this season, and I started rewatching the second half of the season again after the first time we rewatched it all, and then have that delay from tech issues. But
yeah,
hold
on. I can save you the search.
Oh yeah, wait, there's a horsing around special.
You want to turn this into a reaction?
There is.
No, the episode ends with Corduroy Jackson erotic asphyxiating himself.
Oh,
And that's something that I kind of want to discuss because I could never find like, as I rewatch the show more, I find like little details that matter and like say something on the characters. And Corduroy Jackson, I could sort of see like a bit of something where he asked Bojack to be responsible for his own self-endangering activities, and Bojack sort of let that responsibility go. But beyond that, like I couldn't see anything to this.
okay. Like you're mentioning it, and now I'm trying to think because there is a certain, to a certain degree, I think Bojack's, I think that might have been set up for the Sarah Lynn stuff. Because if you think about it, instead of Bojack just being like,
Oh.
okay, person, because like if you remember, Sarah Lynn comes to him for help, and then instead he ends up
Yeah.
enabling her. So instead of like Corduroy Action Jackson comes for help, and then instead of Bojack being like, all right, I'll take your kit so you can't do this, he goes, well, couldn't you do X, Y, and Z to also do this? All different ways to get the autoerotic asphyxiated high, like the high from this autoerotic rush. So like from that perspective, he like instead of like just like how instead of helping Sarah Lynn get healthy, he helped her get high a bunch of ways. He explained all the ways this dude could get high and like alleviate himself and relax and then be quote happy until it led to his destruction, which he then inevitably took Sarah Lynn, and then all that led to her destruction too, and it almost led to his, where it's kind of like a reflection of how Bojack always finds the way to keep doing bad things instead of just getting better.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of reflects, and when you think about it, that also ties back in with, remember we had the prickly muffin discussion, because Sarah Lynn, he tells her, just keep dancing, because it's like you mentioned, Kelsey has that just keep dancing attitude, and like he gets it from his mom, but he also told that to Sarah Lynn. So he kind of enabled him to keep dancing, but in this case, it was choking the chicken while choking himself. So yeah, I think it was all like in the same, like, so I think what a lot of season 2 has in it is like little microcosms that reflect larger plots that will come.
Yeah.
Or like all, because like the Penny thing just kind of like reflects how you end up cheering for him to get healthy throughout the entire series. So I think season 2 was when they were like, this is what we're about, and I think this is what we want to be about as a series. So that's why you have the JD Salinger thing with Todd, where they're like, we're gonna make this as larger plot, like for real, and we're gonna address it too. Where his, instead of it just being like this girl that he had an argument with that you could write off as just like the type A overly successful type, it's his dad being like, I was hard on you because I wanted you to be successful, not realizing that your white privilege would enable you to be a flop upper.
Yeah.
So
I gotta head out because I gotta go do something. Because I didn't think we would get this later. So
oh yeah,
all I'm gonna do
we
is
can
get my.
wrap up. We can wrap up.
Oh, you want to wrap up now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that Corduroy is in the second to last episode. So
Oh, we're gonna talk about that.
yeah. So I think
Eventually.
that's part of why I was like, I think that might be what that is. So yeah, East, give your final thoughts.
Yeah. So this season.
Wait,
Huh?
I already said my favorite character this season and my favorite episode, but you guys didn't.
Oh shit. I think. Ooh. I think that okay, I'm gonna say like episode 11 makes me super uncomfortable, but it's probably my favorite one because it makes me
Because that's the point.
yeah, it's like, all right, you did a good job. That was painfully uncomfortable. Good work, artist.
Yeah, fuck. I'll give it to Bojack this season.
It actually might be Bojack this season. Bojack's arc is probably the one I care about the most.
Because Princess Carolyn's whole debacle with teaming up with Rutabaga and how that inevitably turned out didn't come out to full play until like the next season.
Yeah,
Todd shit didn't come back. The microcosms for Todd stuff didn't come back until way later and come full circle. Peanut butter.
Well, no, I do think it was kind of like another
peanut butter
stick
was
to the fire when it came to his disappointment with Bojack, like his alienation with him.
Peanut butter was good, but he didn't shine as hard as Bojack did. And Diane was just her stuff comes out later the next season. So
Well, I actually feel like Diane, like in season 3, Diane has the smallest role out of all the seasons for her.
I think seasons 5 through 6, Diane are peak Diane. So, and
that's also true.
There's some like, especially character design wise, there's small things that are really cool for the communities and stuff that this is like skewed towards, like especially. But yeah,
long-haired Diane will always be my crush. Come on.
Oh my goodness. All right, East, start taking us home.
Yeah, so as far as this season is concerned, definitely want to give it an 8 out of 10. I love the progression of how it just showcases a lot of real things, how people need to cling to something, or how things can make you better or worse. And that, for example, for Diane, is just trying to implement herself on something so she can feel like she's doing something, or trying to be a righteous person, but you see down the line that a lot of shit's just really just selfishness and trying to feel validated inside yourself. You see Bojack in love, and with Wanda, you just try to make a change for the better. And how love makes you try to change and want to be a better person. And that's just about basically those two characters. And I think my favorite episode this season was with the one celebrities. What do they know? How much do they know? And this, that.
Oh, we didn't talk about that at all.
Yeah, that was definitely
Mr. Peanut Butter and Bojack moment.
Yeah, that was definitely the highlight of the season for me as far as the episode goes. Because it's just because when you realize he was like, it's like that's when they took a step back. I was like, yeah, all that shit you've been talking, Bojack, this isn't just a little comedy show. It's like, I noticed every fucking thing you said, how you treat me this entire time. I just decided to try to boom past it, but you couldn't. And then your wife did all that shit. So let me bring it back up and show you that, all that little shit is not just getting skate past. I realized everything you did.
Man, I just went through an emotional roller coaster. East, you're absolutely right, but something was flickering on Aniki, behind Aniki, on his cupboard there, and it took me a while to realize that was the fan. Bro, I thought you had a ghost in your house for like a solid minute.
I know you're good, but my computer is about to die, so we gotta wrap this up because there's something going on.
Wait, favorite episode of the season?
East. Wait, which one was your favorite, East?
He said, "Let's find out." No.
Oh, mine was
Celebrity Show.
Mine's definitely episode 11. It's definitely episode 11. Too much suffering. All right.
Just enough suffering.
Real quick, final thoughts for you, Johnny?
No.
No?
Well, no. No.
All right. Thanks for coming by, guys. Got to wrap this up real quick just because the computer's going to shut down on me. It's being weird. I do actually, Daniel Radcliffe and all that other stuff, good. We're going to try to do this on the 24th, or sorry, 26th?
26th. Yeah.
26th. All right. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
All right. Not the 12.
Not 12.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming by. Hope to see you again. Nice, quiet, small stream.